by just making a split band here, adding the breakdown.
Feeling heavy. Keep it real, I'm independent, I don't need no deal. I'm jaws on the beat, I got a flow that kills. Do my thing with a few G's, Lauren Hill.
Okay guys, so let's check out the update to Fabfilter Saturn. We've now got Saturn 2. Interface wise, it looks very similar and familiar to how it previously was, but there's been a whole host of improvements, lots of under the hood things, adding extra saturation and distortion algorithms, and just some flexibility and general improvements overall that just take it from being the powerhouse it was to back at the top of the game. One of the nicest things that's been added straight away is to take note of the GUI being completely changeable, so we can just tap down here and we've got small, medium, large and extra large. Up here in the top right hand corner we have full screen mode as well.
Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady.
Just having a frequency analyzer of that quality that you can full screen ears. It's still multiband as it was previously, and you can just go to the top and you've got a little slider up here with a plus icon to add those in, except we can now do 6 bands in total. And you'll notice if you have used something like the Fabfilter multiband compressor that we've now got a crossovers between each band, which is a nice little touch. So rather than it being a fixed crossover, we can now do 6 through to 48 dB slopes on each. We've also got our overall gain control in the middle of each band. You can just grab and drop the whole thing down, and then each band is able to be manually adjusted just at a quick glance. So we could use our frequency analysis and see the area we want to pull away or increase.
Going up and hitting the ground.
If you want to remove a band once it's selected, simply hit the cross just over here on its individual controls, and it disappears and joins with the band to the next right hand side of it. Much like before, algorithms are located just here. We've had a whole bunch more that have been added in, but we start on warm tape by default. It's always linked to the drive control, which starts in at 20%. So just here I've got it on the vocal bus, and let's just add a little bit of drive with the warm tape and have a listen through some of the algorithms.
Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from hitting the ground. You heard me while I gave you plenty of love and time, but I started to drown. Hearts are empty, but now I'm ready to give my heart to someone else now. Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from hitting the ground. Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from hitting the ground. You heard me while I gave you plenty of love and time, but I started to drown. Hearts are empty, but now I'm ready to give my heart to someone else now. Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from hitting the ground. Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from hitting the ground. You heard me while I gave you plenty of love and time, but I started to drown. Hearts are empty, but now I'm ready to give my heart to someone else now.
Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from
hitting the ground.
As you can see, a whole bunch of different algorithms, and each one can be applied to an individual band. For example, the newly added breakdown effects could be really interesting if applied just to a small section of a track. So we could apply it to like the middle of the vocal here by just making a split band here, adding the breakdown.
feeling heavy, but now I'm steady.
And we've got that really interesting like pitch down break, but it's just using the middle of the vocal. It's really weird.
Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from hitting the ground. You heard me.
That's a really interesting effect, and to be able to do that in like a multiband setting is really kind of crazy. Let's switch on high quality so it goes into superb. This can hammer the CPU a bit. You can see my CPU at the top hopefully has just jumped up a good chunk there. This is going to be heavily oversampling.
Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from hitting the ground.
Much like before, on each band we've got our own dynamics and EQ control as well. So what we could do here on this lower band, we've got a lot of low frequency being boosted up with this particular filter set.
Feeling heavy, but now
We can take that away quite easily.
Going up from hitting the ground.
Now the high frequency is definitely being lost in places, so over here we could use the dynamics control and quite simply just flatten that out.
Feeling heavy, but now I'm steady. Going up from hitting the ground.
That's just one interesting idea we could try. What we could absolutely do is look at something on a bass line as well and really have a look at how we could automate and recreate something there. We've got this big Moog bass line in this track. Well, a lot of the new presets added into Saturn 2, all the presets, by the way, are new. If you want to go to the old presets, we have V1 preset folder. So there's actually a whole new bank of presets. They're all incredibly useful and sound good pretty much out of the gate. So we can literally just click one forward. We've got this 456 demo and listen to what it does to this bass line. Like the fattening up there is just ridiculous. Adds loads of detail into it as well. And there are hundreds of presets, and one thing this is really highlighting is the new way that the interface works with modulation. We can see it at the bottom just here. And see the visual feedback we get from modulation occurring as well. We're going to leave it on this brutal compressive preset, switch high quality to superb, and let's have a look at how the modulation works. So to add a new modulator in, have a nice little plus icon. It again gives us a list of the kind of control that we want to have there. So for example, let's have an XLFO. Let's put that LFO in here, and from this little icon at the top, we can drag out and we can link it to any of the parameters that are now brightly highlighted. So anything here, for example. So we could link it to the drive just here. Once we've linked it, we get a set of controls and we can see the automation happening and what it would actually be doing. So at the moment we can see it's pulsating that left to right on the drive. Let's put the drive up a bit so it's kind of obvious to us what's happening. We can really hear that whip up in the high end and we see it instantaneously on the visual feedback. With the sliders here, we can control how much of that effect is happening. Really dial it into a heart's content. If you're trying to get a really specific value, a double click will allow us to put in any value that we desire. We can see the visual feedback of the pulse happening here. What if we want to change the LFO itself? Well, we can click on the LFO and it opens up to give us a little bit more information. At the moment it's free flowing. Let's sync it to 1/8. At the moment it's free flowing. Let's sync it to 1/8. And we now get the visual feedback of that LFO at that new rate. We can give it a frequency offset. We can even offset the balance of it. The XLFO glide time lets us change our LFO shape, but equally we can click on the shape itself and adjust its parameters. If we want to add to its complexity, we have a plus and a minus. We can keep extending out the size of that LFO and build our own LFO shapes. We can select a value and we can change its type. So So we can have a square filter mixed in. When we click off of this, it condenses back down to the quick view and shows a rough estimate of our custom LFO. It's a similar thing with the envelopes or the EF1s. And we can link to multiple parameters as well. Under modules like the LFO and the EF1, we have another drop-down option where we can open up presets. So we can open up a 12-step sequence in the LFO, which allows us to very quickly build in our own options without having to build it individually. If we're using multiple crossovers and we're perhaps working on a signal that has harsh differences between the left and right, we can also switch on linear phase mode, which will stop any phase smearing between the cutoff points here. Notice now that we've added a new band, that the new band is not affected by any of the previous modulation. However, any modulation that we wish to add from the same modulators can be linked into the new band. A parameter linked as well can allow you to custom name it. For example, this is linked to the drive control. If we decide to also link it to this EQ band, we can simply double click and name it drive EQ, and we know what it's going to do. That's just a few of the new features added into Fabfilter Saturn 2. I suggest doing is head over to Fabfilter, download the demo and try it out for yourself. It is by far the best multi-band saturation plugin that's available now. Hope the video was helpful for you guys, and I will see you on the next one.
I'm independent, I don't need no deal. I'm jaws on the beat, I got a flow that kills. Do my ting with a few G's, Lauryn Hill.